The sun dipped low behind the jagged peaks, spilling a river of red across the horizon. Leora rode hard, her chest heaving as the wind whipped against her face, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Her white wedding dress, torn and stained with dust, clung to her like a second skin. She had run from the castle, from her arranged marriage to a prince whose cruelty she had long feared. Every step of her flight felt heavier than the last, as if the shadows of the forest were reaching out to claim her. Behind her, the sound of hooves faded into the distance, yet Leora could not relax. The forest ahead was rumored to be cursed, a place where travelers disappeared and strange whispers haunted the trees. She cared little for rumors now. Survival was all that mattered. Her horse stumbled over hidden roots, forcing her to jerk the reins and steady herself. Heart pounding, she urged the animal forward, deeper into the forest's dark embrace. Then she saw him. Emmerich appeared as if from the shadows themselves, tall and imposing, with eyes like storm clouds and hair dark as midnight. His presence was magnetic, dangerous, and Leora's instincts screamed at her to flee, but her horse reared and refused to move. Emmerich's gaze softened, just enough to be unnerving as he approached. There was no fear in him, only a calm, commanding presence that seemed to make the air itself still. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, yet it carried over the rustling leaves. "I had no choice," Leora replied, her voice trembling with both exhaustion and defiance. "I am not staying at that castle." Emmerich's eyes narrowed, and he studied her carefully. There was fire in her, a spirit unwilling to be caged. He did not offer comfort, yet he did not threaten either. Instead, he extended a hand, steady and sure, inviting without demanding. "Follow me," he said simply. Leora hesitated. Every instinct screamed that she should flee, that no man in this cursed forest could be trusted. Yet there was something about him, something primal and commanding, that made her lower her reins. She nodded, mounting her horse again, and allowed him to lead her deeper into the forest. The trees grew taller and darker, their branches forming twisted arches overhead. Moonlight struggled to pierce the canopy, and the air grew cooler, tinged with the scent of moss and something faintly metallic, almost like magic. Leora's heart pounded with a mix of fear and curiosity. "Who are you?" she asked, finally breaking the silence. "Someone you should not need to know," Emmerich replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed a guarded wariness. "I am a protector, of sorts. The forest has rules. Those who do not follow them do not leave." Leora shivered, not from cold, but from the weight of his words. She wanted answers, but she had none to demand. Her survival depended on trusting him, and yet trusting anyone was dangerous. They walked for hours, the forest twisting around them, as if alive and watching. Emmerich moved silently, each step sure, confident. Leora struggled to keep up, her legs aching, her mind racing with fear and questions. Eventually, they reached a silvered stream that glimmered under the faint light of the rising moon. Leora dismounted, letting her horse drink from the water. She sank to her knees by the stream, exhausted. Emmerich watched her for a moment, his expression unreadable, before kneeling beside her. "You are far from safe," he said quietly. "The forest does not take kindly to those who flee from their destiny." "I don't care about destiny," Leora replied, her voice cracking. "I care about surviving the night." Emmerich's gaze softened slightly, though his posture remained guarded. "Survival is a fragile thing here. You are stronger than you know. But the forest tests all who enter." Leora looked at him, her breath catching. There was a strange pull between them, a tension she could not name. His presence was both terrifying and comforting, like standing near a fire that could burn or warm you. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, unable to hide her curiosity. Emmerich's eyes darkened. Because you are not meant to face this alone. A sudden rustle of leaves made them both tense. Shadows moved in the underbrush, shapes that did not belong. Leora clutched her dress, and Emmerich stepped protectively in front of her. From the shadows emerged figures, ghostly and twisted, their faces hidden beneath tattered hoods. Whispers filled the air, voices that seemed to echo from the very trees themselves. "They have been waiting for you," Emmerich said, his voice tense. "Do not falter." Leora's heart raced as the figures drew closer. She wanted to scream, but Emmerich's steady presence anchored her. He raised a hand, and the whispers faltered, as if some invisible barrier held them back. "Go!" he commanded, and the figures recoiled, disappearing into the darkness. Leora stared at him, amazed and frightened. What are you?" Emmerich shook his head, almost ruefully. "I am not something you need to understand. Yet." The night deepened, and the forest seemed to sigh around them. Leora felt a strange calm settle over her, though the danger was far from gone. She had no choice but to follow him, to trust him, even though every instinct screamed that she might be stepping into something far greater than herself. As they moved deeper into the forest, the air grew colder, and the trees seemed to close in around them. Leora shivered, not from the cold, but from the weight of the unseen eyes that watched their every move. She dared not speak, fearing that the wrong word might bring the shadows to life again. Emmerich glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "The forest tests more than strength," he said. "It tests heart, courage, and the choices one makes in the face of fear." Leora swallowed hard. "And if I fail?" "Then it will take everything you hold dear," Emmerich replied simply. They reached a clearing, and Emmerich stopped. The moonlight revealed a small ruin, overgrown with vines and moss, a sanctuary hidden from the eyes of the world. It had once been a temple, he explained, though now it was nothing more than stones and memories. Yet even in ruin, there was a strange beauty to it, a quiet magic that seemed to hum beneath the surface. "This will be safe for now," Emmerich said, gesturing to the stones. "Rest. Regain your strength. Tomorrow, the forest will demand more of you." Leora sank to the ground, overwhelmed by exhaustion and relief. She wanted to speak, to ask 1,000 questions, but no words came. Emmerich knelt beside her, silently observing. A guardian in the night. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. The forest held its breath, the moonlight casting silver shadows around them. Leora looked at Emmerich, and something in his eyes made her heart ache with a longing she did not fully understand. "You should sleep," he said quietly. "The night is long, and the forest does not forgive weakness." Leora nodded, leaning back against the cold stone. Yet sleep eluded her. Her mind replayed the day's terror, the prince's fury, and the strange, compelling presence of the man who had saved her. She felt a pull toward him, a desire to understand, to know, and yet fear kept her wary. Hours passed, and the wind whispered through the ruins, carrying voices just beyond comprehension. Leora's eyes drifted shut, but even in dreams the forest reached for her, shadowy fingers brushing against her heart. Emmerich remained at her side, vigilant and silent, as if bound by duty and something far deeper. And then she heard it, a whisper carried on the wind, soft and unmistakable. "Leora." She bolted upright, heart pounding. Emmerich's hand was on her shoulder, steadying her. "It is nothing," he said, though his eyes betrayed a hint of concern. "It called my name," she whispered. Emmerich's gaze darkened. "The forest knows your name. It has been waiting for you long before tonight." Leora shivered, the weight of the words pressing down on her. She wanted to flee, to escape into the world beyond the trees, yet something held her there, rooted by fear, curiosity, and an unspoken longing she could not name. Emmerich stood, eyes scanning the shadows. Rest now. Tomorrow, the forest will demand more of you, and you will have to decide whether to face it alone or with me. Leora nodded silently, sinking back against the stone. The whispers lingered, echoing in her mind, carrying both promise and peril. She closed her eyes, knowing that the night was far from over, and that whatever awaited her would change everything. And as the wind carried the forest's secrets around her, one thought remained clear. She was no longer just a runaway bride. She had entered a world where danger and desire walked hand in hand, where every choice could lead to freedom or ruin. The first rays of dawn filtered through the thick canopy, painting the ruined temple in pale gold. Leora stirred, her limbs stiff, her mind tangled with dreams of shadows and whispers. Emmerich stood nearby, silent and vigilant, a dark silhouette against the morning light. For a moment, she studied him, his posture calm, yet every movement exuded strength and caution. "Did you sleep?" he asked, his voice low, careful. Leora shook her head. "Not really. I keep hearing things. Voices, shadows moving. I don't understand." Emmerich's gaze softened, though the storm behind his eyes never faded. "The forest speaks to those who are not ready to face themselves. It senses fear, longing, and doubt. You have all three." She swallowed, embarrassed. "Am I really that easy to read?" He offered no answer, only a small, almost imperceptible nod. Leora realized she was not just in a forest. She had entered a world where the trees, the wind, even the ground itself seemed alive, watching, testing. Emmerich turned, leading her along a narrow path overgrown with brambles and moss. "There is a place you must see," he said, "a sanctuary where the forest's magic is strongest. There, you will understand why you were brought here." Leora followed, trying not to stumble over roots and hidden rocks. Her dress was torn, her shoes muddied, but she did not care. Each step forward felt like a test, and she could feel Emmerich's presence as both shield and challenge. After a long walk, they emerged into a hidden valley, bathed in morning mist. At its center was a crystal-clear lake, the water reflecting the rising sun like molten gold. Stone statues, worn by centuries, ringed the lake, their faces solemn and mysterious. The air was thick with power, and Leora felt it pressing against her skin, filling her lungs with something electric and strange. "This lake," Emmerich began, "is sacred. It has been here long before the kingdoms, long before the curses. It can reveal truths, if one is brave enough to look." Leora approached cautiously, kneeling beside the water. She saw her own reflection, pale and haunted, framed by the mist. And then the reflection shifted. She saw not herself, but a vision of her wedding. Her dress pristine, her hands trembling, the prince smiling cruelly. A dagger glinted at his waist. She gasped, stepping back. What is this?" Emmerich knelt beside her, his hand hovering near hers but not touching. "It is the forest showing you a choice. You cannot run from your past without confronting it. You cannot survive without understanding it." Her chest tightened. "And if I fail?" He met her gaze, storm in his eyes. "Then the forest will take more than your freedom. It will take your courage, your hope, perhaps even your heart." Leora's fingers trembled as she reached for the water. The reflection shimmered again, showing not the prince, but herself standing with Emmerich. She could feel his presence even in the vision, steady, protective, commanding. Something in her chest stirred, a dangerous longing she did not understand. Why me? She whispered. Why not someone stronger, braver? Emmerich's voice was soft now, almost distant. Because you have something they do not. You fight when you are afraid. You endure when you feel hopeless. That is strength few possess. Her eyes met his, and for a heartbeat, the forest seemed to hush around them. The tension between them was palpable, an invisible thread pulling tight, dangerous and compelling. Leora wanted to look away, but she could not. Something about him demanded attention, respect, even trust. The moment was broken by a sudden scream, a sound that ripped through the valley like a jagged knife. Leora spun around, heart racing, but Emmerich was already moving, fast and precise. He disappeared into the mist, leaving her alone for only a heartbeat before returning with a figure draped in shadows. The figure fell to the ground, gasping, eyes wide with terror. Leora's heart lurched. The man was not human. His features were twisted, ethereal, almost ghost-like. He clutched his chest as if something had drained his strength. Emmerich knelt beside him, speaking in a language Leora could not understand. The figure trembled, then fell silent. Emmerich's hand hovered over the shadowed man, glowing faintly with a pale light. The forest responded, the mist swirling as if alive, feeding on Emmerich's energy. Leora stepped closer, trembling. What is he? Emmerich's gaze met hers, sharp and unwavering. A messenger, bound to the forest's will. He carries knowledge that can help or doom you. The choice of whether to listen is yours. The shadowed man stirred, his eyes flickering open. The bride, the bloodline, the curse, he whispered, voice barely audible. Then he collapsed again, leaving Leora and Emmerich in tense silence. Bloodline? She asked, voice shaking. Emmerich's expression darkened. Your arrival here is no accident. The curse that haunts this forest is tied to your family, to your lineage, and it is tied to the prince you fled. He seeks more than marriage, he seeks power, and you are the key. Leora felt the ground shift beneath her. I never wanted any of this. I just wanted freedom. Emmerich reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. His touch was light but electrifying, sending warmth through her despite the chill in the air. Freedom is a choice you have yet to claim, but to do so you must confront the shadows, face the danger, and understand the power you carry. Only then will you survive what comes next. Her chest tightened with fear, and something else, something she could not name. Desire, perhaps, or a dangerous curiosity that urged her closer to him even as her mind warned her to run. She tried to step back, but her feet felt heavy, her body betraying her. The forest shifted again, shadows lengthening and whispering around them. A low growl echoed across the valley, resonating through the stones and the water. Leora's pulse quickened. She realized that the forest did not only test hearts, it hunted them. Emmerich's eyes blazed with warning. Stay close to me, he said. The forest will try to separate us. Fear will try to turn you against your own instincts. You must trust yourself and me if you are to survive. Leora nodded, gripping her dress tightly. She felt a strange courage blooming inside her, fragile but real. The shadowed man stirred once more, muttering fragments of a warning about a hidden danger approaching. Emmerich's expression darkened, and he stepped in front of her, ready to act. Minutes stretched like hours as the mist thickened, swallowing the edges of the valley. Shapes moved in the shadows, eyes glowing faintly, watching, waiting. Leora felt her heart race, not just from fear, but from the pull of Emmerich's presence. She wanted to speak, to ask 1,000 questions, yet the words would not come. Finally, the mist parted slightly, revealing a path deeper into the forest. Emmerich turned to her, expression tense. The next trial begins now, he said. You must walk this path. Alone you would not survive. With me, you have a chance, but it will demand more than courage. It will demand your heart." Leora's throat tightened. My heart? He nodded, eyes dark and intense. Do not mistake what awaits for safety or comfort. The forest challenges not only strength, but desire, trust, and the choices that define who you are. One false step, and all can be lost. A shiver ran down Leora's spine as she followed him. Each step felt like stepping further into legend, a world where danger and longing intertwined. The shadows seemed to stretch, forming shapes that whispered her name, promising both doom and revelation. As they walked, Leora realized that she was no longer merely fleeing. She was being tested, shaped, and drawn into a story far greater than herself. And at the center of it all stood Emmerich, guardian, guide, enigma, and perhaps, in ways she did not yet understand, the one who would challenge every fear and desire she had ever known. They reached a clearing where the mist swirled in intricate patterns. The shadowed man had vanished, leaving only faint traces of his passage. Emmerich paused, looking at Leora with a mixture of warning and something else, something soft, fleeting, almost like longing. "The forest does not forgive hesitation," he said, voice low. "Tomorrow the true trial begins. Tonight rest and prepare. But know this, the whispers you hear will not stop, and neither will the forest. It has plans for you. And it has plans for us." Leora's gaze met his. She wanted to ask what he meant, to voice the questions swirling in her mind. But before she could speak, the shadows deepened once more, and the whispers returned, curling around her like fingers of mist. They spoke of power, of destiny, of a bond that neither could escape. Her breath caught, and she realized the truth. She could not turn back. Whatever awaited her, she was already in it, and the choices she made next would determine not only her survival, but the fate of the strange, powerful man who had saved her, and perhaps her own heart. The wind rustled through the valley, carrying voices, warnings, and promises. Leora shivered, gripping her dress, yet a small spark of courage ignited within her. She would face the trial. She would follow Emmerich, and she would discover, in the shadowed depths of the forest, whether survival and destiny could coexist, or whether desire would be the true test of all. Cliffhanger ending. As they settled near the misty lake, a sudden ripple disturbed the surface, and a pair of glowing eyes appeared from the water's edge. Leora froze. Emmerich's hand went to his side, ready, and his voice was sharp with warning. "The forest has sent its first guardian, and it will not wait." The mist rose thicker in the early morning, curling around the stones of the ruined temple and the edges of the lake. Leora awoke with a start, shivering despite the warmth of her blanket. The memories of the previous day, the shadows, the whispers, the strange presence of Emmerich still clung to her mind like a second skin. She sat up, brushing damp hair from her face, and looked around. The mist moved as if alive, shifting and twisting, carrying a sense of hidden intent. Emmerich stood nearby, his figure partially hidden by the silver fog. His eyes, sharp and stormy, met hers. "Sleep lightly," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "The forest tests the brave at every hour. Today the trial begins." Leora rose, her legs stiff, and followed him toward the far side of the lake. The water shimmered with an unnatural light, as if reflecting not just the sky but the deep magic flowing beneath it. Shapes moved beneath the surface, shapes that reminded her of fish, yet glowed faintly with something alive, something aware. "What is this place?" she asked. "This is the heart of the forest's power," Emmerich said, stepping closer to the water. "It can show you who you are, what you fear, and what you desire most. But it does not forgive weakness." Leora's gaze fell on her reflection. At first it was just herself, pale and exhausted, her hair tangled and dress torn. Then, the reflection shifted. She saw herself walking beside Emmerich, unafraid, moving with confidence, strength, and purpose. She saw the prince standing far away, powerless, and the forest bending to her will. A surge of longing filled her chest, longing for freedom, for courage, for something more than fear. Emmerich's voice pulled her from the vision. The forest will ask questions. It will tempt you, push you to doubt yourself, to give up. You must answer with truth, with courage, with heart. Only then can you move forward. Leora took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. And if I fail? Emmerich's gaze softened, just slightly. Then the forest will demand more than you can give. But I will not let it take you if I can stop it. Before Leora could respond, the water stirred violently. Glowing shapes rose from beneath the surface, coalescing into forms that resembled both animal and human. They had limbs, yet moved fluidly like water. Their eyes glowed with an eerie intelligence. Leora stumbled back. What? What are they? Emmerich stepped in front of her. Guardians, he said. They are the first test. You must face them, or the forest will not let us proceed. The guardians moved closer, silent and swift. Leora felt fear tighten her chest, but Emmerich's presence anchored her. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Do not fight blindly. Move with me. Trust your instincts. Together they approached the lake. The guardians circled, moving in patterns that made Leora dizzy. Emmerich's movements were fluid, protective, but never forceful. He guided her, showing her how to use the forest's energy to deflect the creatures without harming them. Each motion required focus, courage, and trust. As they moved, Leora began to understand. The forest was not merely dangerous, it was alive, testing not just her strength but her heart. She felt the tension between herself and Emmerich deepen. Every glance, every touch of his hand as he guided her, sent a ripple through her chest she could not ignore. You are learning quickly, Emmerich said, his voice close, almost a whisper. The forest respects courage and truth, but also those who understand the balance between power and restraint. Leora nodded, her chest tightening. I don't want to fail. Not here, not with you. Emmerich's eyes softened again, but the storm never fully left them. Then do not fear. Face the trial and trust yourself. The guardians began to close in. Leora felt a surge of fear, yet something inside her shifted. She no longer felt powerless. She mirrored Emmerich's movements, focusing on her intent, moving in harmony with him. Slowly the guardians stopped, their glowing eyes dimming. They bowed, almost imperceptibly, and sank back into the lake, leaving only ripples behind. Leora exhaled, her knees weak. Did we pass? Emmerich's gaze lingered on her. This was only the first trial. There are more, and they will be harder. The forest seemed to hum around them, a low vibration that resonated with her chest. Leora felt the forest's magic touching her, filling her with energy and clarity. She realized, with a sudden shock, that she had grown stronger, not just in body, but in spirit. The fear that had gripped her when she first fled the castle was no longer her master. She felt a spark of confidence she had never known. Emmerich studied her closely. You are changing, he said. The forest sees it, and so do I. But strength alone will not carry you. You must also confront what lies inside you. Leora's heart skipped a beat. Inside me? Yes, Emmerich said, stepping closer. Your doubts, your longing, your fears, they will be tested. You cannot hide from them, and you cannot hide from me. She looked at him, feeling a strange pull she could not name. Desire? Trust? Something more complicated, more dangerous. Her cheeks flushed, and she looked away, embarrassed. Emmerich did not comment, only watched her, patient and silent. A sudden wind swept through the clearing, carrying whispers that seemed to speak directly to her mind. You cannot escape. You will choose. You will surrender or be broken. Leora shivered. She wanted to run, but something held her in place. Emmerich's presence, steady and unwavering, gave her courage she did not understand she had. "They are testing you," he said softly. "The forest will always push, always tempt. But the choice is yours, and the choice will shape more than just your fate." Leora's gaze fell on the lake. Her reflection shimmered, and this time she saw herself standing with Emmerich, facing an endless shadow. In the vision, she did not falter. She did not run. She stood tall, brave, unafraid. The sight filled her with both longing and fear, the longing for courage, the fear of failing despite it. Emmerich's hand brushed hers, light, almost imperceptible, yet enough to send a jolt through her. "Do not fear what you feel," he said. "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Desire is not weakness, but a guide if you understand it." Leora's chest tightened. "And if I cannot?" Emmerich's eyes held hers, unwavering. "Then the forest will show you. It is merciless, but also revealing. You will learn or you will break, but I will not let you break alone." The wind rose again, stronger this time, swirling the mist in patterns that made the ground vanish beneath her feet. Shapes moved within it, darker, faster, more deliberate. Leora's heart pounded as she realized the next trial had begun. Emmerich stepped in front of her, his posture protective yet commanding. "Stay close," he said. "Trust me, and trust yourself." Together they walked into the mist. The forest seemed to shift around them, forming corridors of shadow that twisted and turned. Whispered voices filled the air, calling their names, tempting them with illusions of fear and desire. Leora clutched Emmerich's hand, her pulse racing, yet she felt a strange calm. She was no longer the runaway bride, the frightened girl fleeing a tyrant. She was a participant in something larger, something dangerous, and perhaps beautiful. The corridor of mist opened into a circular clearing. At its center stood a mirror, tall and ornate, unlike anything Leora had seen. Its surface shimmered like water, and she could see herself and Emmerich reflected within. But the reflection moved independently, showing scenes of the past, the future, and possibilities she could not yet comprehend. "This is your trial," Emmerich said, voice low. "The mirror will show what you fear, what you desire, and what you must become. You must face it willingly. Only then can we move forward." Leora stepped closer, trembling. Her reflection rippled, and suddenly she saw herself in the castle, trapped and powerless. Then she saw herself standing beside Emmerich, strong, confident, unafraid of the shadows around them. The vision shifted again, showing the prince approaching with anger and a dark power, then fading away as she and Emmerich faced him together. Her chest tightened, and she felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. Emmerich took her hand, steadying her. "You can," he said firmly, "and you will. Fear and doubt are part of the path, but they do not define you. Trust yourself and trust what we share. Courage and desire are not enemies. They are allies if you understand them." Leora drew a deep breath. For the first time since fleeing the castle, she felt a spark of certainty. She would face the mirror. She would face the trial. She would not run. The mist swirled, the forest holding its breath, waiting to see what she would do. Leora's hand tightened around Emmerich's, and she stepped forward into the mirror's reflection, into the unknown. The mirror pulsed with light, rippling like water as the mist of the forest thickened around them. Leora felt the magic pressing against her, testing her courage, probing her heart. The shadowed figure she had glimpsed before now stepped fully into the reflection, a tall, dark being, radiating power and menace. Its eyes glowed like molten gold, and it moved with a grace that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. Emmerich stood beside her, his hand tight around hers, grounding her, steadying her. "This is the heart of the forest's curse," he said, voice low. "Everything we have faced until now has led to this. If we fail here, the shadows will claim more than your freedom. They will claim hope, and perhaps even life itself." Leora swallowed hard, her chest tightening. She had grown stronger in the trials, learned to trust herself, and felt the pull of something deeper, something between her and Emmerich that went beyond words. Yet fear gripped her. The shadow was unlike anything she had faced. Its power felt ancient, unstoppable. "You will not face it alone," Emmerich whispered. "We face it together. Trust me, and trust yourself." The shadowed figure spoke, its voice echoing like thunder and wind combined. "Why do you trespass, mortal and exile? You cannot change fate. You cannot escape what was promised." Emmerich stepped forward, his eyes blazing with determination. "We do not accept fate that demands cruelty. We do not bow to curses that prey on the innocent. Leave her or face the consequences." The figure laughed, a sound that shook the forest. The mist swirled violently, and the ground beneath them trembled. Leora felt fear claw at her chest, but Emmerich's presence reminded her of her own strength. She clenched her fists and took a deep breath, remembering every lesson, every trial, every step she had taken to survive. "You are stronger than you know," Emmerich said quietly, but with a power that carried through the storm of magic. "And so are you," he added, looking directly at Leora. She felt a surge of courage, a warmth that spread through her chest and into her limbs. The fear did not vanish, but it became a tool, a fire to fuel her actions, rather than a chain to bind her. Together, they moved toward the shadowed figure. It raised an arm, and the forest seemed to respond, forming walls of darkness, twisting roots, and swirling mist to block them. Emmerich's hand brushed Leora's, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. Their fingers touched, and a silent bond passed between them, a shared understanding that they were stronger together. "You face what you fear most," Emmerich said, his voice steady. "And the shadow feeds on doubt. Do not let it in. Believe in yourself, and in what we share." Leora nodded, taking a trembling step forward. The shadow surged, a wave of darkness that threatened to swallow them. Yet she did not retreat. Instead, she focused on the courage she had built, the trust in Emmerich, and the power the forest had granted her through the trials. She raised her hands, feeling the energy flow through her, shaping the mist and light around them. The shadow shrieked, recoiling from the combined force of Emmerich and Leora. They moved as one, their actions synchronized, their hearts aligned. Every movement was deliberate, every choice purposeful. The forest itself seemed to respond, amplifying their power, bending the mist and shadows to their will. "You see now," Emmerich said, voice sharp with intensity. "The forest does not punish courage. It does not destroy those who face truth. Only those who hide, who run, will be consumed." The shadow faltered, its form wavering, as if uncertain. Leora felt the opportunity. She stepped closer, drawing from the strength Emmerich offered and the inner courage she had cultivated. She spoke aloud, words firm and clear. "I am not afraid of you. I choose my own path. I will not let fear control me. I will not let the past bind me. I am free, and I will protect what is precious." The shadow recoiled further, shrinking, twisting, until it finally dissolved into the mist with a final echoing wail. The forest stilled, the trembling ceased, and the mist parted, revealing a calm golden light that bathed Leora and Emmerich. Leora sank to her knees, breathless, her chest pounding. Emmerich knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said quietly, awe in his voice. You faced the trial and did not falter. You have earned the forest's respect and your own. Tears pricked Leora's eyes. She had never imagined that she could feel this strong, this capable. Yet more than that, she felt something deeper stirring in her heart, a connection to Emmerich that transcended fear, danger, or even desire. It was trust, respect, and an unspoken promise that they would face whatever came next together. Emmerich helped her to her feet. The forest has given us a gift, he said, voice softening. Not just survival, but understanding. Courage, heart, and desire. They are not enemies, Leora. They are allies if you learn to trust them. She looked at him, heart swelling with a mixture of relief, gratitude, and something more profound, something she had only begun to understand. I couldn't have done this without you, she said softly. You didn't need me, Emmerich replied, his voice steady but warm. You only needed to trust yourself. I only guided you. Leora shook her head, a small laugh escaping her. You guided me more than I realized, and I think I'm beginning to understand why the forest brought me here, not just to survive, but to become someone stronger, to choose, even when it's hard. Emmerich's eyes softened. And that choice is yours. Always. The wind shifted, carrying the whispers of the forest, but now they sounded different, gentle, approving, almost like a sigh of relief. Leora felt the weight of the shadows lifting, replaced by a sense of calm and possibility. They walked to the edge of the lake, the golden light reflecting in their eyes. The water shimmered, showing not just their reflections, but a vision of the world beyond the forest, free, bright, and full of potential. Leora realized that the trials had changed her, shaped her into someone capable of facing not only the forest, but the challenges of life beyond it. Emmerich turned to her, his expression unreadable for a moment, then softened into something rare, gentle, open, and filled with unspoken emotion. You have grown, he said simply, more than I expected, stronger, braver, wiser, and you have something else now, something the forest cannot give, but it has revealed in you. Leora's heart skipped a beat. What is that? Emmerich stepped closer, his presence overwhelming yet comforting. Hope, he said, and trust, and perhaps the possibility of love, if you are willing to accept it. She felt warmth flood her chest. Desire, courage, and trust mingled into a single, powerful emotion. She wanted to speak, but words failed her. Instead, she reached out, letting her hand rest in his. And for a moment they stood together in silence, the golden light of the forest bathing them. The forest whispered around them, not with danger now, but with promise. Leora realized that their journey was not over, but the greatest trial had passed. Together they had faced fear, darkness, and the shadows of the past, and emerged stronger, transformed, and unbroken. Emmerich's hand squeezed hers gently. Whatever comes next, he said, we face it together. You are no longer alone, Leora, and neither am I. Leora smiled, feeling a strength she had never known. Together, she agreed, voice steady and certain. The sun broke fully over the horizon, bathing the forest in light, dispelling the last of the mist. The ruined temple, once a place of danger and mystery, now felt like a sanctuary of possibility. The forest had tested them, shaped them, and revealed the courage and heart that lay within. For the first time in her life, Leora felt free, not just from the prince, the castle, or the shadows, but free to be herself, to trust, to hope, and to love. Emmerich stood beside her, quiet but steady, a presence she had come to rely on, admire, and perhaps even care for more deeply than she expected. They were two souls who had been tested, who had faced darkness together, and who had found light not just in the forest, but in each other. And as they turned to leave the lake behind, stepping toward the edge of the forest where new paths awaited, Leora felt a surge of anticipation. The world beyond the trees was unknown, full of challenges and wonders, but she was ready. With Emmerich at her side, she knew she could face anything. The forest had given her strength, courage, and the knowledge that fear could be met and overcome with heart and trust. And in that moment, as the light of dawn embraced them both, the bond between them deepened, silent, unspoken, but undeniable. The shadows had tested them, the forest had demanded courage, and they had answered. Together they were stronger than any fear, any curse, or any trial the world could offer. And though the future remained uncertain, one truth was clear. They would face it together, with hearts open, hands clasped, and a courage that would not falter.